Hi. In this episode, part 2 of my chat with Cam, he explains the difference between good and great animation, what to do when Tom Cruise isn't available to voice your character, and how he built a career by putting fur on animals. Cam, how much do you think animators are actually considering the voice of their character while they're creating it? Is that something that's forefront of their mind, or are they actually creating the character and then finding a voice to match?
Yeah, I think that when you see someone animating, you see them pulling faces, and they most likely have a mirror on their desk, and they're kind of looking at their expressions and they're sort of, and I think also not that you can see or hear this, but they'll have the voice in their head of
Mm.
the character that they're animating as they're going over. And I think this might be unique to CG, because if you're doing stop motion, you've got to pull a character's head off and replace it with another head and then move it a little bit. And there's all the logistics of, the physicality of being on a stop motion set versus drawing it. Like, you've got to draw that character before you can even see the character there. And then you're kind of looking at the pose before, the pose after, and the whole kind of thing. CG is different. Like, your character's there the whole time. You're just kind of posing them. You don't have to pull their heads off. They're there the whole time, and you can kind of have that relationship with that character. And you're speaking in that character's voice inside your head. So if, and maybe higher up, so like you lead animators or supervisors or directors that actually control who's going to voice that character, would definitely have a voice in their head, and then they're going to basically pitch around and look for the actor that actually fits that voice that they've had in their head.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same as when people write a story and it's like, oh, I thought, Tom Cruise would play this, and they've got in their head that Tom Cruise is going to be running around and doing all that stuff, right? It's the same way. You have, maybe Danny DeVito or something, like his voice in your head whilst you're animating a character. And then, they might not be able to afford that person, and then you're
Have to
animating
settle.
with a different voice,
Yeah,
and
okay.
that could feel very weird.
Mm.
You're like, why is he speaking in this voice? That's not his voice.
Yeah.
Because you've spent such a long time with these characters before the audio actually starts to come in. But the
And
audio does
yeah.
come in very early. They usually do the record before they do the actual
Ah,
animation.
which was actually another question. But before I go on, what is CG?
Oh, sorry, computer graphics. So
Okay,
CGI.
perfect.
So anything's computer generated. So in
Okay.
terms of, animation, I mean, all 2D is pretty much done on a computer screen these days using Toon Boom software, which we saw at Loop to Loop. Um,
Yep.
uh, yeah,
Okay.
that's the predominant thing there. I guess it's kind of similar. You do have a constructed character on your screen most of the time. But CGI, I think it's very different in that you have that 3D puppet in your scene, and it's kind of a more permanent existence for them that you can create in your head.
Yeah, right. Okay. And I've forgotten what the other question I was going to, where we were going from there. But
Mm,
that's okay. Um,
that's all right. I do that.
w- no, yeah, that's all good. What's the dream collaboration look like then between a voice actor and an animator? If you had ideally, or if animators could choose the way they wanted to work, would they
Mm.
have, what would that look like?
Well, it's an interesting thing because, like, as just sort of just touched on there, the director's really the only person who actually controls that, and they control the performance of the voice actor in the booth while they're doing it, and they're hitting the beats and they're getting the performance that they want. And then the animator really is just like, oh, we've got this recording and here you go. Off. So the
Mm,
animator himself, herself, themselves,
yeah.
basically don't really have much of an input, and it's potluck whether you get someone who can really nail that voice that you love and
Mm,
you really think that embodies the character, or
yeah.
you can't quite see the vision that the director has chosen for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But in that sense, I haven't done a lot of directing of voice actors, mostly done for commercials rather than for um, other fictional sort of stuff. Um, but I think the real I, I guess what you're really looking for from the actor is that same buy-in to the character. They can
Yeah.
embody that character. They can give them that inner thought process. What are they thinking about when they say this line? And it's the whole thing, but also giving them those hooks for the animators um, to lean into an expression that they always film the actors whilst they're doing the voice performance. So the expressions on their face whilst they're delivering the line, mannerisms and gestures that they have, the accentuation of the voice, where does it go up and it raises, or the emphasis on a particular word. Doing stuff for Dylan recently, actually. That's my sword. That's my sword. Which word are you emphasizing there? The fact that
Yes.
it's yours, so you emphasize my, or the fact that it's a sword, so you emphasize sword. So working, and the director will usually tease that out of the actor, or the actor will have those kind of beats that they can bring to the show.
Yep.
But that's really what you're looking for, is that buy-in. That no one wants just a bland reading of what's going on, unless the character is supposed to be like that. But as I think that's the thing, giving the animator something to work with in terms of that character performance. You're hitting that beat, you're delivering that line, and then you can imagine a gesture that goes along with that. You might only be seeing the face, but then you've got to kind of put that whole body movement in behind it as the animator.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
I think it's just that buy into the character, the buy into the immersion of the world. And if you as an animator believe that your character is an entity that exists,
Yep.
kind of like animism, everything's alive. As a voice actor, you're coming in, you're believing that character is alive as well, and you're embodying that character. And I think that's really it, the buy-in. It also give you more consistency in the character, the way they deliver their lines, so they're not sort of going off character or off brand per se. You have a visual Bible when you're doing animation, and it shows you the way that character looks from all angles, and usually in different lighting situations and stuff like that. And if you go too far off that, you're like, I can't recognize that character. His face is kind of too distorted, right? And it's the same with the voice. If you come up with a character voice, you're generally inside that character voice. But if you start kind of drifting off, you're suddenly be like, is that really how they would deliver that line? Or is that accent right? Or is that how they would say that if their accent was blah, blah, blah?
Which comes back to that original thing you were saying, where they need to, the animators as well, and I guess the actors as well, need to fully embody this character and know how they will respond in different situations. Or
that's right.
And we used to do a thing when I was doing acting back in the day, like a hot seat. And once you've developed your character, you would sit in this hot seat, and people, your peers or, the audience, would ask you questions. And as the character, you need to know how you'll respond, what your thinking would be around that. And I guess that's the depth you would be looking for from your actors as well, or your voice actors, as well as your animators. They've got that understanding of their character. Would that sum it up well?
Yes, but I think that with acting and live action, you get a lot of that. Let's do a table read and let's get it into a room. And, with animation, it's like, I got to show up at this place at 11 o'clock and we're going to do, I got a microphone in my face, and I haven't met any of the other character actors. I'm just doing my read, and it's going to take 2 hours, and that's it. Right. Yep. And that's not the actor's fault at all. I think that's just the way that people in animation kind of think.
Right.
We've got schedules in. We've got 2 hours. Let's go. Let's get this done. And it's not, we should do a table read first, or we should, give them some time to immerse themselves in the characters. I mean, a lot of it's down to finance, right? If you had the money, of course you would do that stuff. But generally, you don't. You've got 2 hours. All you can do is pay for 2 hours time. So get in there and do the work.
Yeah, get as much as you can out during that time.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So for someone like me who, is really keen to get into that voice acting for animation, what's one thing I could learn from the way animators approach their craft that you think would be really beneficial for me to know?
Oh, yeah. Jeez, that's a
big question. Maybe we've kind of covered it too. Like, I kind of think, maybe it is that being able to immerse myself, or understanding the character really well before we get in there. Look at me, I'm answering it for you there, Cam.
Well, no, but they're good points, because back to what I was just saying. I mean, how do you
Mm,
do that if the director or the production company aren't giving you that time to
mm,
immerse yourself? Like, if you only have 2 hours, 3 hours to do all of this stuff, like, when are you going to get immersed? When are you going to get involved in that? How are you going to do that? And that's
yeah,
stuff that I guess I don't know anything about. I'm not an actor. Um, but just making room for the performance, I think, allowing them, not setting them up to fail,
mm.
doing that sort of stuff. So, like, ask the original, what was that question again? I think
What's any advice you would have for me, someone
mm,
like me, getting into that sort of voiceovers for animation?
yeah. I think that just doing as much of it as
Mm,
you can is getting that experience. But again, I think it's going to be down to um, going over and above, or really what the budget allows, getting involved in extra time and getting that immersion and putting the extra lengths in. I mean, this is one thing I don't encourage anyone to work for free, but essentially,
yeah.
in my career as an animator, or as many things that I've done, I'd say maybe about 20% of the workload that you do is for free.
Yeah. Yep.
You do the overtime, you come in on the weekends, you get that shot looking better, you do another pass on the animation, you do all this sort of stuff that you're just not getting paid for. And I guess that's the thing. Everyone just has to make that decision whether it's worth the sacrifice early on. Hopefully, it's going to pay off for you down the track. Um, is to put those hours in, put the work in, and I guess bring those things up to the director about, well, what's the character thought process? What's happening here? Like,
Yeah, right.
it's the trope, it's the stereotype. We go up to the director, what's my motivation here?
But it's true. You want to make sure you're aligning with what their vision is.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And if you're
um,
just trying to
yeah.
break into the industry in terms of getting more of that stuff, like, onto your reels, I think
Mm,
contacting animation students at the universities, not just the deacons and Monashes, but also all the private institutes, the JMCs and SAEs and all those, AIE, all of those private animation uh,
mm.
colleges that are out there, have lots of students making animations that require voices and whatever,
Yeah,
and
of
they don't have
course.
much money, and I guess that's the extra work. And um,
But it's good
eventually,
practice for
it
both
is
of us then, isn't it? So,
it's good practice, but it's also, eventually, those people aren't students anymore, and they're making films with budgets. And that's the thing, just setting up the relationships and the networks, um,
no.
and having those people realize that this is actually quite an involved process, and I can't just get someone in for an hour to bang down
Mm,
some lines. I do actually need to um, give them the respect that is due for actually creating a character through just their voice, or through their performance, if they're a mocap person or whatever, right?
yep,
You know,
absolutely.
I mean, just as guilty for mocap. And you get into the suit, get in there. All right, what are we doing? Who am I? Okay, you're going to
Yeah.
stand over here and blah blah blah. Your name's Jim, and you're on the moon, and there's an alien coming over the hill. Go. So
Yeah,
obviously you're not going to get the greatest performance there.
yeah,
You
that's
need
it.
you need the prep and the setup and everything like that. Yeah, I
No,
don't think that really
makes
answered your
sense.
question, but
No,
I
no,
think
it
that
did. Absolutely. It really did. It was, no, that's great. Um, I I remember talking with Dylan about the different kinds, obviously, of animation, in particular 2D and 3D, and he said there's a
mm,
real kind of resurgence of 2D. Could you just
absolutely,
explain
yeah.
a little bit about that and why that might be the case?
Well, you follow the money.
Ah, okay.
CG came in the late '90s,
Yep.
and Jurassic Park was obviously the floodgate that opened up animation, computer animation,
Hmm.
to the industry. Everyone suddenly went, "Hey, we can do this much cheaper on a computer," and
Mm, okay.
suddenly 2D became very expensive in relation to 3D. So, suddenly everyone wants to. No, no, no. It's just cheaper for them to make 3D
Gotcha.
than it is 2D. And now it's just turned around. Now it's actually cheaper to make 2D. So
Ah,
it's gone
okay.
back the other way.
Wow.
And it's just the money. It's always the money.
Okay. Yeah. It's
They
so
can
often the
always say,
case,
"Oh,
isn't
it's
it?
the resurgence because people are sick of 3D and they want 2D." No, they just will watch whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. They'll watch what we give them.
If it's good, it's good. You'll watch whatever's good. You don't have a preference for 2D, 3D. What I mean, you might, but if you watch a great 3D, you're not like, oh, this sucks because it's not 2D.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, Cam, I know you specialize in, which I found fascinating, in fur, putting fur
Yes.
on creatures,
Yeah.
which is incredible. I had never thought that there would be someone to specialize in that. I kind of thought it
I
was
know
all
it was
encompassing.
great because no one else thought that there
Yes,
was anyone who could specialize in it as well. And there was
I
one point I was like
know.
pretty much the only person in the Southern Hemisphere doing this stuff. So I got all of the work. It was
How
great.
did you get into specializing in fur?
Well, I actually applied at Allura, who are these days they're called Frame Store. They've been bought out by a dozen
Hmm.
different companies. At the time, they were a family-owned company, Allura, and operating out of South Melbourne,
Hmm.
doing all of the visual effects movies that came out, around that time. They were the biggest studio in Australia, pretty much. Oh, maybe not. Animal Logic, probably bigger than that.
Hmm.
But anyway, I applied as a lighting artist on Mad Max, and obviously
Oh,
another
wow. Okay.
another childhood icon, Mad Max. Seeing
Yes.
seeing Road Warrior when I was 12, 14 or whatever it was just like, oh my god, I want to make movies like that.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
or I want to work on movies like that. And so I got in there and I sat down at my desk and then tap on the shoulder, and it's like, oh, look, we've just been informed that it's going to be a 10-month delay
Oh,
because George Miller wanted to do something, I don't know, whatever. And there was just huge production delays on that film. So I sat around for a while twiddling my thumbs before they scrambled around. It was like, oh, well, we're doing After Earth. And the modeler is a bit busy with, all of the models required because that's an M. Night Shyamalan film. Who it's set in the future. It's got Will Smith and his son in it, and they basically crash land on this planet that's slightly evolved
hmm.
from what we're used to in the modern day. So
Yeah.
all of the animals were a CG. They're slightly different to what animals we kind of recognize now. So the model was flat out doing models, and he was also putting the fur on them. And they're like, "Hey, can you put the fur on these guys?" So I started doing
So
that,
random.
and then
Yeah.
yeah, literally 8 years for the next 8 years of my career, I was putting fur on animals
Wow.
and creatures in movies. Not always. I mean, I was doing other stuff as well. But
Yeah.
um, when I left the feature films, I think they went off. They did Ted. I did
Oh,
Ghost
yeah.
Rider,
Okay.
Ghost Rider 2, and some other stuff. But Ted was mostly just animation,
Hmm.
and I was working the VFX team, so they didn't need VFX for that. So I went off and back to my own sort of company and was doing. I just found that I could just do fur. I
Yeah.
really should do just putting fur on characters,
It was so
hair for
bizarre.
characters, or and it was fantastic because it was such a niche skill at the time. It was very early days. I mean, and most people can kind of bumble through putting fur on a character these days. It's not that hard. The tools have come a long way,
Yeah.
and back in the day, it was like pulling teeth. It was very difficult, very technical, and feathers. Oh, geez, that's just an absolute. That's hair on hair. So
Yeah.
that's an absolute nightmare. But so I basically just went down that rabbit hole and spent a lot of time putting fur on creatures,
That is
lions and stuff like that. I did
that is very cool.
this gas company over in the Netherlands have this big blue mascot. It looks like a giant bean bag, kind of woolly knitted sort of thing. So I did that as well. So I was doing like wool and knitted things, um, textury type of stuff. So yeah.
Love that. That's
Hmm.
so random and so amazing. So very
It
incredible.
was not what I expected to be spending a good portion of
No.
my career doing, but I
Wow.
loved it. I mean, it was so
Wow.
so much fun. Just being a
No.
digital hairdresser, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's that's so amazing. All right, so Cam, last question for you, but can you share a time in your life when you have really been challenged or stepped out of your comfort zone and had to take a deep breath and go for it?
I can't think of a time when I haven't really. I
Ah,
mean,
wow.
maybe recently. I worked on a film, Rippy, which came out
Hmm.
in Australia. It was called The Red, and in America it was called Rippy, which is bizarre because Rippy, as in Skippy, the
Yeah,
kangaroo, which was in Australia, but they released it in America as Skippy. It was like, whatever.
the
Anyway,
zombie kangaroo,
it's a
right?
zombie kangaroo.
Yes.
I worked on that, and essentially that was a big ask. The initial brief was, hey, we've got 6 shots. They've got an animatronic kangaroo. Everything's going to be wonderful. And then they got on set, and the animatronic didn't really cut it, and they ended up with a film without a character in it, without the zombie
Oh.
kangaroo,
Oh,
because
wow.
of the thing. So it was like, all right, well, we can do that CG. And I'd stayed up all night. This is while we're up in Queensland on the actual shoot. And I stayed up all night and I did a test and I showed the director in the morning. And he's like, oh, I think we can do this. And so suddenly 6 shots turned into over 100.
Oh, wow.
And like everyone lost their mind and freaked out because there's all the budgets associated with, an animatronic kangaroo, and all
Yeah.
the people that are hired to do the specific tasks are all related to, we're working with an animatronic, we're working with practical. And they just didn't have a film if they were going to do that. So they decided to pivot and go off to CG, and the money men ran around with their heads cut off for a while. And then essentially it was like, okay, we're going to do this. And at that point I was like, I don't know whether that was actually a good thing to do, to put my hand up and say, hey, we can do this. Because then they compounded the issue with, we don't have 12 months anymore. We've only got 6 months to do this.
Oh, wow.
So
Pressure.
suddenly it's gone from 6 shots to 100 shots, and 12 months to 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And I think at that point I was like, no, I think I might have bitten off more than I could chew.
Oh, wow. That's a huge ask and so
Yeah.
much pressure.
Yeah, it was. It was absolutely huge.
Wow.
And so I've literally sort of stepped out of the industry since then. It's been a couple of years, and I'm kind of ready to, post-traumatic stress. I'm ready to step back in. But yeah, I think that was probably the, one of the main points in my life or my career where I've said, hey, I think you might have just, because I always say yes. I'll always say yes.
Right.
And I always say, yes, we can do this, and then figure out how we're going to do it.
Love it.
You just have to. I mean, it's just the way that it works. You don't say, no, I can't do that. You're like, yes, I can, but we have to do this. But we have, like, it's always yes.
Yes,
and then there's qualifiers, right?
Yeah.
But I think my early career was very negative. I was asked Dylan about this. It was always very negative, and it was around, no, we can't do that. No, it's not going to happen. So I really try to turn that around. And particularly in my professional life, always be willing to, deliver on what the director or the producer or whoever the person running the show, what do they want? How can we deliver that to them? There's always a lot of qualifiers, but you've always got to say yes. You've always got to put yourself out there, and you've always got to really, because otherwise you're not progressing, you're not challenging yourself, and you're just going to stay stagnant. And then if you're stagnant, you're going to get sick of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
One of the things that, how can you put fur on a character for 8 years? I mean, really, it's got to be boring, right? It's the same ears and head and testicles.
Yeah.
Like every animal's got, well, not every animal, but there's a lot of them that have testicles, and there's a lot of time I've spent putting fur on testicles. And you've got
a minute detail. Maybe not.
Well, it's going to be on the screen, so you've got to cover that thing in fur. So, the thing with the tools and the developments and the way that you do it, it's always interesting. It's the development of, now we can do this. Now we can create braids, and we can do this. One of the big challenges with doing the Rams home loan ram and creating wool like that actually looks like wool on a sheep, and then sticking it on his face and actually having, like, they had this kind of uncanny valley problem with that character for quite a while. He's got like a human face stuck on a sheep, and it was just really creepy. And
it would be really weird.
Exactly. So one of the things was just trying to develop that so that actually was a good character. And just the tool sets, as the software got better, the next version came out. You can do this now, you can do that now. It was just always cutting edge, always creative, and always leading somewhere onto the next development and stuff. And I think that's really it. Is just don't stay stagnant. Always try and bite off more than you can chew. And
keep growing,
and just chew like hell until you can actually manage it, And I think that's kind of the mantra of most filmmakers out there, I guess, you know.
Oh, I look, honestly, Cam, I reckon it's probably the mantra of anyone who is driven and who wants something, because I think you have to keep moving, you have to keep growing, you have to keep challenging yourself.
Mm,
So I think anything that is meaningful in life requires action and requires a little bit of stretch. So,
mm,
or if not a lot of stretch. And I think that, sums up everything.
mm, mm.
No, that's awesome. Oh, Cam, thank you so much for coming in and chatting today.
Not a
It's
problem.
been
Not a problem.
so insightful, and I would love to maybe get you back on the show a bit later sometime, maybe even with
Absolutely.
Dylan. And
That'd be hilarious. Yes.
yes, I think that would be awesome. I've been kind of working on him at the moment because he's like, oh, I don't really like that. But he's
Yeah.
open to it now, so I might
Well,
have to tease
he's
that
the
up.
mystery man. He's been mentioned on this podcast a few times. So
Exactly.
you have to get him into stuff. So now the hilarious thing that you probably picked up on when you saw when we met at Loop de Loop was that Dylan and I are like polar opposites in
Oh, he
absolutely
says the
every
same.
respect.
Yeah.
And like to the films that we love, down to like absolutely every to the music that we like. And it's so strange that we get along like a house on fire every time, that
Even the way
we're
you
together.
Yeah, the way you
Uh,
animate and everything is so different. But do you know
it
what's
is,
freaky,
yes.
Cam? Your laugh is a little bit similar to his.
Yeah.
Go figure. That's
Oh, this
bizarre,
is the
right?
thing. I spent a lot of time with Dylan in very close proximity. As like I said, animators are mostly in a back cupboard just staring at a computer, but you're sitting next to someone else who's in that cupboard with you.
Yeah,
And
right.
my early career was with my business partner at Sub-Zero, and I still have his mannerisms and his way of talking. He was an
Wow.
American New York Italian, and had very specific language and mannerisms, and that's where I was mentioning earlier on off air about swearing like a sailor, basically. So I got that a lot from him. These things rub off on you. So
They do.
yeah, I'm not surprised that Dylan and I kind of
Share a laugh.
merged. Yes, we probably share a lot more, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, well, I think that would be fantastic. So
Mm.
I will be back in touch sometime soon because I think that would be fantastic conversation too.
Thank you very much for having me on today. It's been wonderful.
No worries, Cam. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Bye. Wow, I loved that. So incredibly insightful. Hopefully, you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to hit follow, and I look forward to you joining me next time.